Hey, Katachikenai, what's up? It's the Culture Detective here investigating your favorite TV shows. And yesterday, I received an All About Lily Shushu Blu-ray. Oh my god! And then today, I finally finished watching the limited TV show from FX, Shogun, or if you want to be linguistically accurate about it, Shōgun. This is a new limited TV show created by Rachel Kondo and Justin Marks, and it is based off of the 1975 novel of the same name, written by James Clavell. And it is a show that aired on FX. Now, despite the fact that this show seemed like a very new thing that people had created and written, actually it's not, because this show is actually a remake of a TV show also of the same name from the year 1980. Yes, you heard me exactly right. 44 years ago, Shogun was already made for TV. Crazy, I know. So, yeah, in the year 1980, there is already a Shogun TV show. It is from the studio's Paramount Pictures, and it stars fricking Mifune Toshiro as the main samurai Toranaga Yoshi. Yes, one and only, simply the best samurai actor of all times, Mifune Toshiro. So it is incredibly surprising that when Shogun came out, I had no idea that this TV show even existed. So anyways, Shogun is a story about a guy named John Blackthorne. He's an English guy. He is from a boat and he got washed up in Japan in the year 1600, which is right between the Sengoku period and the Edo period. And then he got himself involved in this huge political turmoil between our protagonist Toranaga, who is actually based off of Tokugawa Ieyasu. So Toranaga Yoshi is the name of the big guy in the protagonist, but he is being schemed against and plotted against by other powerful lords of Japan, and the biggest one is Ishido, who is the main big bad guy of the show. Now, aside from that, we are also introduced to a myriad of characters, including Lady Mariko, played by Anna Sawai, who sort of acts as a translator and a bit of a supporting actress for our main guy, John Blackthorne, or in his Japanese name, Anjin. And meanwhile, we have, again, Toranaga Yoshi, who is played by none other than Sanada Hiroyuki, who is also one of the greatest actors in modern Japanese cinema. So, honestly, this is a great show. As expected. Everyone's saying it's great, so I'm like, fine, I'll check it out. I watched it, and I'm like, yeah, it's pretty great. And I think partially the reason why I enjoyed it so much is because the main character looks like freaking Connor, as in Sea Dog VA. I mean, come on, just look at them. They're like the same person. And it's really entertaining for me because when I watch the show, I imagine Connor doing the same things and saying the same things, and it's so much more entertaining because of that. So maybe my enjoyment of the show is partially because of that, but come on. Look at the similarities. It's uncanny. But another thing with Shogun that's different from the 1980 version is that it is simply way darker and way grittier. Not only is it darker because it's not as lit, but also darker, more violent, more bloody. Everyone's more serious. Everyone's yelling at each other, way more intense. And because of that, there are a lot of comparisons between Shogun and Game of Thrones, and that is inevitable, which is something that, again, it's tiring, it's annoying, I see. So every single period drama with a lot of violence is automatically compared to Game of Thrones. Yes, it's a little bit annoying. However, I do have to point out that James Clavell's novel from 1975 predates George R.R. Martin's A Song of Ice and Fire by 16 years. So that's all the more to show how original and groundbreaking Shogun is as a novel. Now we have the show itself, and honestly, it's really good. Episodes 1 to 4 are just bangers after banger after banger after banger. And it is incredibly entertaining, and it's been a long time since I've seen a TV show, like a live action TV show, that gets me this invested in the story. Every time I finish an episode, I go to my phone and I go to Reddit and I look at the discussion, the post-episode discussion, every single episode. And on top of that, I even go to YouTube and watch behind-the-scenes videos and the featurettes and the characters and the actors' interviews, because I got invested in the show. And it's been a long time since I felt something like that. I feel like I'm suddenly young again. I feel like I'm suddenly watching a show that I really love again. And that feeling is awesome and it's refreshing, and it really brings me back. Now, one reason why Shogun is so entertaining, it's really simple. Fish out of water. So this is a plot device or plot trope, plot technique that really, really works. Place a character in an environment where they completely know nothing. Not the culture, the customs, the language, nothing. They are the fish out of water. But because he's the main character, because Anjin is the main character of the show, we, the audience, also become fish out of water. And when we are in these fish out of water situations, we tend to be very alert of every single scene, of every single character, and we tend to pay a lot of attention to all these dialogues because we are just like Anjin. We are the fishes out of the waters. And that's really cool. A lot of movies do that. They place a character in a situation where they're just completely confused. But in Shogun, it's even better because it's an Englishman in Japan in the Middle Ages. I mean, you can't get more fish out of water than that. So that worked really well. And that's what's kind of ingenious about the simplicity of the premise of Shogun, is that this show is great for weebs and Japanese history nerds, but also at the same time, it's great for people who know nothing about Japanese culture, and this is somehow their first entry point to Japanese culture, like they haven't had sushi or watched anime before or something. It's great for both sides of the spectrum, and a lot of movies and TV shows don't do that. A lot of movies and TV shows only cater to one particular demographic, but Shogun caters to everyone somehow because of its premise. So that's really, really successful. In fact, a lot of people probably watch Shogun and think, oh my god, what the heck? The West interacting with the East? The Portuguese interacting with feudal Japan somehow? Because they didn't know that colonialism exists, apparently. But yeah, it is true. The Portuguese is one of the first colonizers who came to East Asia and decided to colonize as much as possible. Hell, they even wanted to get a piece of Hong Kong back in the 15th century or something. So now we move on to the dialogue. Every character in the show speaks in old-fashioned Japanese. Not exactly old Japanese. Obviously, if they really accurately pronounce every word in old Japanese, it would have been completely unintelligible. But in fact, everyone spoke old-fashioned Japanese. So it's kind of like modern Japanese, but old-fashioned. So think Kurosawa films. Think Rashomon in the 1940s and 50s, when a lot of Japanese films have already tried to do this samurai period thing. And a lot of people would end their sentences with gozarimasu, de gozaru, jano, dano. These sentence endings make the modern Japanese sound kind of old-fashioned, and they also use old-fashioned vocabulary and old-fashioned expressions. So I really like seeing modern Japanese actors in the 21st century speaking old-fashioned Japanese as if they're making a jidaigeki back in the 1950s, which is trying to then imitate actual old Japanese. It's really interesting, and I really like that attention to detail. And I also really like that the show forces us to read subtitles. I mean, not me, I'm fine with it. I grew up watching shows and movies with subtitles, but some people aren't, and they should learn because you're missing out. So let me go over some highlights. First of all, episode 4, really cool, because Fuji, one of the side actresses, one of the side characters, has a really badass scene where she became consort to Anjin, and Anjin pointed a gun at Omi, who is one of the powerful men in the clan, and Fuji urged Anjin to give her his guns. And then so after Anjin gave her his guns, Omi was like, give them to me. And then Fuji just points the gun to Omi. That was really badass. And that basically consolidated Fuji as my favorite character of the entire show. And I totally didn't see that coming. When she first showed up in the first episode, I was like, okay, this is going to be another kind of boring, plain side character. But no, she slowly became my favorite character. Despite the small screen time she had in the show, every time she shows up, she is like a nugget of hope and positivity. And yet at the same time, she's very loyal and kind to Anjin and everyone around her. She's just badass in this gun scene, so that's really cool. Episode 6 is definitely a bit of a slowdown point in the story where we have this Anjin and Mariko romance side storyline that I don't care for. Oh, of course, another romance storyline thing that doesn't really add much to the story. It does add a bit to the story, but it just feels like a detour. But thankfully, one episode later, this romance sort of complicates itself to some pretty amazing awkward scenes, but also bigger conflicts and bigger emotional breakdowns. Episodes 7 to 9 sees the tension escalating, and one episode after another, we see a major death. And oh my god, thank god I was not spoiled any of the death scenes. Like, before watching Shogun, I knew nothing. And that is amazing, because I got to experience all the death scenes firsthand as the director and the writer intended. And I love that. I fucking hate spoilers. So I was shocked at every turn. There are death scenes where I'm like, no way. No, it's not gonna happen. Someone's gonna stop this death. Someone's gonna save this person from dying. Yes, like there's no way they're killing. They did it. So it reminds me of Game of Thrones in that sense, because, you know, Ned Stark, you know, that scene, and then so many other Red Wedding, it's like, come on, no. Someone's got to save them, man. Someone's got to save these characters from... Oh, never mind. And it's really cool to see the writer, I guess in this case John Clavell, being comfortable enough to kill off this many characters for the sake of the plot, but not in a nonsensical way, but in a way that actually pushes the plot forward. Like, there's so many death scenes that literally change the course of the story, not pointless deaths. Some writers, they like to kill off all the characters. Haha, isn't it shocking? Expectations subverted, but no, death scenes need to mean something, and Shogun understands that. So yeah, really, really good. Really tragic as well. Goddamn. Another thing I want to point out is, I don't want to brag. I don't really want to brag, but on episode 8, someone I used to work with. So a year ago, I and my Japanese friend worked briefly with this actress who is based in LA, and we worked to film for her actor's reel. And we filmed for one day and that's it. That girl turned up in this show. And I thought she's like gonna be a background actor, just like an extra in the back. No, she had a whole dialogue scene, but just one scene. But she had a whole dialogue scene. I would imagine that it's pretty weird. It would probably feel a little weird if I was her, because it's like, oh my god, this is the biggest project I've been involved in. It's crazy. And in fact, I'm speaking to two big actors from the show. But for some reason, it's only one scene, it's only one day, probably on a sound stage, and that's it. I would be pretty confused. Like, so am I involved or am I not? But anyways, congratulations to her. She did well in the scene. But anyways, episode 9, holy shit. This episode is the shit. You know, this episode makes me almost a little nostalgic for like TV, you know, back when I was 16 or 17, when I was catching up with Game of Thrones, and I'm like, oh my god, this character's gonna die? Wait, no, no. Wait. Oh wait, no. It's just so many twists and turns and subversions of things happening, and the whole episode is just such a roller coaster ride that by the end I was just like, oh my god, so much just happened, and I'm just shocked, and I just miss this kind of TV. Please bring it back, because this is fucking amazing. Like, every single scene is just like, what's gonna happen next? It just leaves you on the edge of your seat, and it is absolutely fantastic. I'm not gonna spoil it, but the amount of like tension building and then relief, and then the tension coming back again, and then the build up to the end is just explosive. If you know, you know. Now we have episode 10, which is a really nice ending to the show. I'm glad they didn't show the ultimate battle or anything, because this means the focus of the story isn't the fighting. It's not the physical fighting and the battles. It's the mind games. That's the point of the show. And I really like the show emphasizes that by not showing a lot of action at the end. It's also a really good conclusion for basically all the characters in the show. They all received some kind of conclusion. So overall, it is a really solid show. The production design is awesome. I love period pieces, and I love production design in period pieces. The cinematography is also really good. I wasn't used to this kind of cinematography, so first of all, they filmed it and I guess projected it with a 2:1 aspect ratio. And even though 2:1 aspect ratio, when Vittorio Storaro used it, it's great, groundbreaking. But nowadays, it's a bit annoying, because everyone, like even commercial, like KFC commercials, use the 2:1 ratio, which has made it a little bit annoying, to be honest. But it is pretty well used, because at the end of the day, a show this epic warrants for a scope ratio. But knowing that people are going to stream this and watch it on their laptops, it's just going to be two thick black bars on the top and the bottom. So why not make the aspect ratio taller? So 2:1 makes sense. But if I was the DP or whatever, I would make it 1.85 just to make it more complete. But yeah, the show is actually shot on anamorphic lenses, which look really cool. A lot of light streaks make it look really epic and fantastic, and putting anamorphic footage on a 2:1 ratio is a pretty interesting thing. So that's that. The color grading is fine. One minor gripe I have with the show is that a lot of colors look desaturated, and I feel like a lot of period films do that. Oh, it's desaturated, the old times. Like, no, it can be colorful too. Period films can be colorful too. The opening title sequence is really weak, like not a great theme. The font choice, not a huge fan of it. I miss the days of like good opening title sequences, like, you know, Mad Men and Game of Thrones and like True Detective. But at least there's an opening sequence, so there's that. And the characters could be better. Again, the Game of Thrones comparisons may not be that justified, but if there's one thing that makes Game of Thrones more enjoyable than Shogun, if there's one thing, that would be the characters, because in Game of Thrones, there's a lot of characters that I love, like Tyrion, who's witty, interesting in every single scene, Jaime and his character depth, Arya are great characters. But in Shogun, I can't really think of that many interesting characters. Fuji is really great. I also really like Yabushige, who is this crazy entertaining guy who really likes death, but he's kind of like a slithering snake. You never know what side he's standing on. Yeah, overall, I really love this show. And at the end of the day, my ultimate conclusion is actually, I wish there's a Chinese history show that does just as well as Shogun. I wish there's a Korean history show that does just as well. Why is Japanese culture so well liked and so popular in the West, and in fact in all countries? I don't know, but that is a subject matter for another video. For now, I do have to admit, this show is fantastic. I had fun watching it. It's really entertaining, and I am immersed in this world. I wish it was longer. I wish there was a season 2. And I'm glad there's no season 2, but like shows like this really make me want to explore the world more. And that is what makes a show great. I am giving Shogun a light to decent 9 out of 10. So, have you watched Shogun? Comments below, let me know, subscribe if you want more, and thanks for watching.